The case I chose to speak about is Brown versus the Board of Education. This is a landmark court case and has been regarded by many as one of the most influential Supreme Court decisions in the entire 20th century. This case began in 1951 as a class action lawsuit against the school board of Topeka, Kansas. At the head of this class action lawsuit, Oliver Brown argued that his daughter, Linda Brown's constitutional rights were being violated by having to be bused well out of her way to a blacks-only learning facility when a much newer and up-to-date school just 7 blocks away refused his daughter entry based on the color of her skin. Through the appeals process, the Supreme Court heard this case in 1954 and ruled unanimously in a 9-0 decision that the separate but equal doctrine outlined in Plessy versus Ferguson did in fact violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Brown was victorious in this case, and it was a landmark decision. Dr. Martin Luther King was a proponent of this decision. He praised it, calling it simple, eloquent, and unequivocal. He goes on to say it's a joyous daybreak to the end of a long night of enforced segregation. But the court's ruling was slow to be implemented at first. There was some opposition to the ruling, especially in the Deep South within the United States of America. An effort led by Strom Thurmond was put together. He drafted a document called the Southern Manifesto, and this was in reaction to the decision in Brown versus the Board of Education. He complained about the clear abuse of judicial power, and he got 101 signatures of other legislators from the South on this document in favor of what he was trying to say. So not everyone was an advocate of the court's decision, and implementation of their ruling was slow at first. I'd argue that it took until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 for the decision to properly be implemented through law, and political maneuvering was instituted throughout the South to avert the ruling of the court in this instance. My personal opinion of the court's decision is that it was wholeheartedly correct, and segregation in public schools is morally wrong. Basically, it was a tricky case because the 14th Amendment did not outline specifically public learning facilities. So the court had to bring in testimony of social scientists on and speaking about the detrimental aspects of segregation on populations. Essentially, if the court ruled opposite in Brown versus the Board of Education, we'd see a much different United States. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s would have been harshly impacted if the court did in fact rule differently. But the lasting effect of the ruling was a enhanced civil rights movement and a move and a swifter move towards equality, kind of setting that standard within the highest court of the land towards the civil rights movement. So basically, it was slow to be implemented at first, but through threats of less funding, the federal government did implement that decision initially, and I think it has benefited the learning environment throughout the United States and has been a great decision and a right decision by the Supreme Court of the United States of America.